All right, many think of war as combat, but as the new documentary Korengal shows, it's also about brotherhood, service, and sometimes even boredom.
The film follows a group of soldiers stationed at an outpost in the Korengal Valley of eastern Afghanistan. They share what it's really like serving overseas and coming home again.
But I felt like there was this hate for me because I did sins, I've sinned. And although I would have it done the same way, everything the same exact way, I still would feel this way, and that's the terrible thing of war. You do terrible things, then you have to live with them afterwards.
Sebastian Junger is the director of Korengal. He embedded with the soldiers and experienced nearly everything they did. Welcome.
Thank you.
How might this film inform us in terms of the kinds of stresses that Bergdahl experienced?
Well, all frontline troops are under an enormous amount of stress. I don't know what led to Bergdahl's decisions, but the film Korengal and my previous film Restrepo, they do give contexts. People have said that Bergdahl's unit was sort of raggedy and ill-disciplined. The soldiers that I was with, they looked raggedy too. They were very well disciplined, but so that's actually the norm out there. It's not the exception, it's the norm. One
of the criticism of Bergdahl's platoon was that they wore cut-off T-shirts and bandanas, and that suggests there wasn't a lot of discipline within the group. But you've been embedded with troops. This happens a lot.
It's almost universal. The military brass likes to equate perfect uniforms with discipline. There's no connection at all between them.
One of the things that fascinated me, Sebastian, was a contradiction that was raised over and over in the film. You have one guy who says, I love a firefight. There's nothing like a bullet whizzing past your head. You had another guy with a camera right on his face saying, what is God going to say when my time comes? Is he going to say, job well done? I don't think so.
Well, that's the complicated thing about combat. I mean, that guy who was worried about God also loved fighting.
Yeah.
Some of them are quite traumatized by war, and a lot of those guys afterwards really missed it and wanted to go back. And that's why returning vets are, in a complicated situation because they have contradictions.
Is Afghanistan different?
Oh, it's enormously different. I was there in the mid-90s, and, it's almost unrecognizable. There's 7 times as many children in school, a third of them girls. The cities have really been developed. And it's the lowest level of civilian casualties in 30 years.
That too, but I mean, is Afghanistan different in terms of terrain, therefore, in terms of war and how war impacts you?
I don't know. I didn't cover Iraq. I mean, Afghanistan is the longest war I've been involved in. I think being in small bases, sort of surrounded, getting shot at, I think is a real psychological stress.
I would like to know about you, Sebastian, because really, you experienced it. Your life clearly was in danger too, based on the video I saw. You became friends with them. You bonded with them. How did it affect you too? Did you miss it too?
It affected me a lot. I came home and I was, I wouldn't say a mess, but sort of halfway there. I mean, I was emotionally pretty shaken up, and but I miss it a lot also.
What do you miss?
I miss the connection, the brotherhood. I really became part of that platoon. The adrenaline, the sort of meaningfulness of what you're doing, and the incredibly tight bond. I mean, those guys were sleeping shoulder to shoulder, almost literally shoulder to shoulder for a year.
Your contributions are so important, really, Restrepo and Korengal, because so few people understand what war is like. We watch movies, we don't watch documentaries, we read about things, we don't feel it. And I love it you say this is what war feels like. What do you want people to know about what it's like on the ground?
Well, I think people see soldiers sometimes as sort of victims of this whole process. And soldiers hate that. They're not victims of it. They signed up voluntarily and often with great eagerness. And many of them miss it when they come home. And we have to understand how that works.
That's a very good point, because I mean, I've interviewed many people who've come back, including you. And always they talk about the comradeship. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what they're fighting for. That's what the mission is.
You get 2 very intense drugs in combat. You get adrenaline, and you get human connection, brotherhood. And once you've been exposed to those, they're very hard to give up. And we have to understand that as these guys come home.
Yeah. And what can possibly substitute for it is such a high and deep bond.
That's right.
That you feel somehow at loose.
That's right.
Another powerful piece from Sebastian Junger.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much, guys.
Korengal is playing now in New York and will premiere in select cities in the weeks ahead.